Hi everyone, I'm Marcia Lenz, anchor with KWQC TV6 News, and we're here for a special report and interview, and I'm joined by Sharon DeReek.
Yeah, and I'm here as well. And it's a project that we've been working on. Most specifically, our Jenna Jackson has been working on for weeks and weeks and weeks now. And Jenna, you are going to tell us, go in depth on the Trudy Appleby story, and also the suspect who is now charged with her murder. So let's go ahead and start with maybe some background on this case.
Yeah, so I think, when you go around the Quad Cities, you can't go anywhere without somebody knowing who Trudy Appleby is. Her face has been quite literally plastered everywhere, and that's been done on purpose. It's a 29-year-old cold case, nearly 30 years next year. Trudy Appleby was 11 years old in 1996 on August 21st. She disappeared that day. The story goes as this. Her father, Dennis, told police that she had asked to go swimming in the days prior to this. He told her no, they were supposed to go on vacation the next day. That morning, he left for work. When he returned, she was no longer there. Neighbors in the area said that they saw her get into a vehicle, a gray, older model four-door vehicle, with a man inside, and around 20 years old or a little bit older maybe. There has been some reporting that maybe she was last seen near Campbell's Island, and that's kind of where the case ends, as far as, what we know for sure.
And what's been perplexing over the years for those of us that have been reporting on this case is that there was a lot of information initially, and yet police seem to keep running into dead ends. And then they would get new leads over the years, start new searches, and more recently start acting like they knew who did this but needed someone to talk.
Right.
So you have had the opportunity now to talk to the suspect that they finally named.
Right.
And do you have any idea on what broke or how they finally arrived at naming this suspect, Jamison Fisher?
Right. I think that there's a lot to be known in this case, and police are being fairly tight-lipped, as well as the prosecutors. We do know that in court documents, in the probable cause document, it states that there were several witnesses independent of each other who came forward to police to let them know that Jamison Fisher had confessed to them, that he was involved in the murder, that he murdered her, where the murder occurred. They were able to tie him to the last places that she was seen alive. We do not know who those witnesses are. That is not known, but they made a point to say that they were independent of each other. Those documents also make a point to note, because again, this is 29 years that we've had really not a lot of answers, that those witnesses were in fear of their life.
Let's clarify that a little bit about the locations, because I think that has caused a lot of confusion too.
Right.
I mean, you mentioned Moline, East Moline, Campbell's Island, and Colona, Illinois, in Henry County, where the charges are actually based. So
Right.
can you explain or connect those dots?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of confusion over that. So she went missing from outside of her Moline home. That is where she was last seen getting into a vehicle. We dug into our archives. We found a neighbor who actually said, I saw her in the vehicle. I saw them drive away. I saw two men stay back. I got the license plate number. So we know that she went missing from there. There had been some reporting, and I believe that we have reported as well, that somebody came forward and said, well, I saw her with Ed Smith. Ed Smith is one of the persons of interest. In this case, he was deceased when they named him as the person of interest. Saw her in Ed Smith's car on Campbell's Island. So that kind of connects those two places. We can assume that they believe the murder occurred in Henry County, and that is why those charges are filed there.
And I think that's what a lot of people were wondering is,
Right.
What's the Henry County connection?
Right.
Because we've never heard really Henry County mentioned before.
Yeah.
Although there have been searches there. I do remember
Right.
even covering a search of the Green River near Colona at one point, where they brought in excavating equipment
Yeah.
and did quite a physical search. There have been multiple searches like that.
Right.
So police have obviously known more than what we have known for a long time, but this explains the
so.
geography of it.
Right.
Well,
No.
and there were multiple persons of interest that we
Yes.
have heard from over the years. You mentioned Ed Smith. Do you know, or have you been able to figure out the connection between the persons of interest, and Jamison Fisher now?
Well, and I guess that kind of introduces the next part. So I spoke to Jamison Fisher. What he told me was that he was friends with Ed Smith's son. He was not friends with Ed Smith necessarily, is what he says. He says his parents were friends with Ed Smith. He says he was friends with his son, and that's the extent to which he would go into their relationship. He said other than that, he did not know them.
Okay, before we get to the interview, which is what everybody wants to hear more about.
Yeah.
This was not an easy undertaking for you to get to talk to him. Just kind of describe that process, and it took a while.
It did take a while. So following the charges, I decided to write him a letter. He was in the Scott County Jail on unrelated drug charges. So I thought, we had a previous reporter who had written him a letter before, and he had responded. And so I thought, well, I might as well try again, see if he wants to share his story, give him a chance. And so I wrote him a letter, and I said specifically that you are charged with a crime. There are a lot of things being said about what you did. You also deserve to have your voice heard in this as well. And so, will you talk to me? He wrote back a letter. It was quite long. He started us out with, I think you need to know that I'm innocent. He mentions he had tried to go on the Steve Wilkos show to do a lie detector test, and his probation officer at the time said, no, you can't do that. He had asked me specifically to get him newspaper clippings of his case, but said, I want to meet. How can we do that? That then started my process of, okay, so how do I do that? I didn't know the process. I reached out to the sheriff's department. They kind of worked on it on their end, seeing what the rules were with that. That in person, we had to try to do an in-person interview at the Scott County Jail. That ultimately got denied. So by that point, it gets denied. I go on the holiday vacation, so I'm not currently here. And I get a text, he's on the move. And so I said, oh no, okay. So get back from the holiday vacation, write him a new letter to the Henry County Jail. The Henry County Jail goes to Kentucky first, and then it goes up to the jail. I called them to make sure, am I seeing the address correct on this P.O. box? We're sure it's Kentucky. Wrote him a letter. I asked him to then call me, because at that time I did not know that there was a video option for the jail that didn't have to go through a bunch of hurdles that I was trying to avoid. Once we got to that point, I basically said, okay, please call me on this day at 9 a.m. I didn't know if he would call or not. He did not call at 9 a.m. We believe he called later in the day, and since I'm here for the morning show, I was not here. So then we found out there's a video call option. Okay, so we tried the video call option. You have to get approved. I had to submit, my physical driver's license. I put the wrong address first. That delayed it many days. I put the station's address. It didn't match my physical ID. I don't live at the station. So
sometimes we think so.
Sometimes
right now,
I feel like it, but yeah. And so that's, delayed the process. Once we finally got it approved, then we were ready for the interview, and I was waiting on the other end of a blue screen, ready to go, and doesn't show. It doesn't show. And doesn't show.
Good old technical difficulties.
In that case, he was actually in the process of being extradited back to Scott County for his drug trial. So once we got through that hurdle, he accepted a plea deal in that case, came back to Henry County. We had been hearing from acquaintance of his that he really wanted to do the interview. We were told he feels like this is his only shot to get his story out there ever. And so we then started it from there. Technical problems. It finally worked on my iPad from home.
And it's because he really wants to get his side of the story out there.
Yes.
So do tell. What is he saying about this?
I mean, I started out asking him to describe that day for me. Describe August 21st, 1996. He said he couldn't. He doesn't remember that day. It was not a significant day for him. He goes on to repeatedly say that he is not involved in this. He does not know anything about this. He only knows what he knows from the newspaper, from what he's read. He very much claims his innocence in this. He believes that he is being targeted by the police department specifically because he's a drug dealer. He's an admitted drug dealer. It's no secret that his criminal record is incredibly lengthy.
And he just pleaded guilty in the Scott County case.
Exactly, and that was part of that was dealing drugs. And so he believes that they're targeting him because he's an easy target.
Obviously you asked him about a relationship he may have had with Trudy or anybody who may have known Trudy, any of her family members. What did he say about that?
So he started out saying that he did not know Dennis, did not know her, Dennis, her father, did not know her. Then he kind of backtracked a little bit and said, well, I was at his house once. I asked, was Trudy there? Were you introduced to her? Do you know if she was there? He said he did not know if she was there or not. He didn't see her if she was.
Now, in court documents, it was indicated that the motive behind her disappearance and murder was drug-related. And given his admission to his drug background, how did he respond to questions about that?
I asked him, I guess, point blank, you have a lengthy record. They say this is related to drugs. You're a dealer. Why should we believe you're innocent? And he basically just said, I'm just not involved. I wasn't there. I don't know these people. I don't know anything about it. He brought up, interestingly enough, the sketch of the suspect many times. So police hired a forensic artist to do that sketch.
From one of the witnesses' descriptions.
Way back in the day.
Yeah.
Right, way back. And so he brought up many times that the suspect, had dark curly hair, had a mullet, had a mustache. He said, he kind of jokingly said it looked like a friend of mine. And I said, who's that friend? And he kind of paused for a moment, and he's like, well, that doesn't matter. And said, they're not involved. And then kind of went on. I asked, was that friend, Dave Whipple or Ed Smith?
Dave Whipple, the other person of interest.
Yep, the other person of interest. And he said, well, he kind of laughs. It does look like Dave Whipple, but that's not who we thought it looked like at the time. The suspect, the police sketch does have what appears to be a mullet. They're wearing a ball cap. It's a side view. They do not have a mustache, though. I also was able to obtain a 1992 and 1993 booking photo of Jamison Fisher, where he also does have a mullet as well.
Was there anything he said during, and how long was this interview, first of all?
The interview, so the first part, again, technical problems. So Matt was in there. He was able to finally figure out how to get the call to come up. The first part of the interview is by video. So that call itself is approximately 10 minutes. It cuts you off. You get no warning on the video. It's just done.
Because it's through the jail.
Because it's through the jail. Exactly. The next part, so then we waited for the next part to start. We had signed up for several different time slots with him. It wasn't showing up. It was showing that he was offline. And I thought, oh no, that was it. That's all we're going to get. He called. So he called the newsroom. We restarted the interview. He said his side wasn't working now. So again, so many technical problems. The next interview lasts about 15 minutes. You get cut off again though. So at least this time I got a 2-minute warning, and then I got a 1-minute warning. And I asked him, please call me back. It's going to end. Please call me back. And he did not call back.
But you had a good, long, lengthy conversation with him.
Yes.
Was there anything he said that made you, that you were shocked by or surprised by?
Or questioned?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that there were some, what I'll say is that going through and writing this story was difficult, because he really goes on and on and on and talks and talks and talks. And some of it's kind of hard to piece together and to make sense of okay, what are we saying? Many times I would try to interject. I could not get a word in many of the times. But really, the majority of it, there was one moment, I'll say this. There was one moment where I just said, why are police going after you? The whole time he's claiming the Moline Police Department is framing me. You know, they're after me. It's just, at least if I'm in jail, they don't care. It doesn't really matter to them. And he kind of pauses for a moment, and then I felt like for a brief moment I maybe saw a little bit of who Fisher really is, you know, rather than this, I guess I would say, like, kind of persona, tough guy, I didn't do this, I'm innocent persona. And he says, probably because I sell drugs and I cause a lot of trouble. And then he was just kind of quiet after that.
It's interesting because there's a lot of people that sell drugs and a lot of people cause problems.
Right.
I mean, why would Moline police just randomly pick this guy out?
Yeah, and I asked him, you know, we know Matt has talked to a prosecutor, an expert in no body cases, because Trudy still has not been found. To this day, they don't know where her remains are.
Which is the part that's just still heartbreaking.
Yes. Heartbreaking, especially for the family. That's really all they care about, the family. I spoke to them on Saturday. They said they would forego a conviction to just know where she is. Wow. And powerful, you know, it's hard to imagine what, you know, you would think you'd want that justification, that closure, right? But for them, it's just about getting her back.
But if you talked to him for that long and he denied having any involvement and explained that police are just out to get him, what else did he talk about? Was this just rambling, or? It
was a lot of rambling. There's a lot of calling out names that I can't really go into a whole lot, you know.
You mean he tried to cast aspersions on other people?
Yeah, he told me, you know, the one thing he said is, you know, so again, we got to go back to the Dave Whipple and Ed Smith, because they're players in this whole thing too. You know, police never really ruled them out. They're both deceased though, so it's kind of hard to do a lot with,
and they can't defend themselves.
They can't defend themselves, right? And so he does, while he said many times, you know, I didn't know Dave Whipple. I played with Ed Smith's son. You know, I knew him. There's moments where he also, you know, I only know about this from what I read in the newspaper. That's the only involvement I have in this. There is a part where he says, you know, Ed Smith hated me and I hated him too. And in fact, when this first happened, I told police that those are the two that did it.
So and I kind of was in contact with Jamison Fisher 29 years ago, perhaps.
I mean, that's kind of what it appeared that he was saying.
Implies, yeah.
Right. But again, he bulldozes conversations. And so and it's kind of that delicate balance, right? I want you to talk. I'm giving you a chance to share your story, so share it, you know? At the same time, I'm interviewing you. I've got to be in control of this as well. And I've got to get my questions in. Certainly, I would hope he would call back. He did not. I had many more questions for him. I had a long notebook full of everything that I had hoped to ask him, but he did not call back. He did have his mother call back.
Yeah.
You grew up in the Quad Cities. I mean, you were a little girl when this happened.
Yeah, 5 years
was
old.
it like a surreal experience? I mean, just covering this now.
Yeah, it's a very surreal experience because again, you know, when you grow up here, you see her face all the time, and when you're young, you don't understand.
Yeah, they did billboards, the memorial service on the anniversary of her.
Right.
Was it her birthday?
The visual is on her disappearance.
Her birthday was shortly
right around
after
the same time.
her disappearance.
It's
her
actually
12th birthday,
the same day as my son's birthday.
Yeah.
Yeah, September 4th.
Yeah, so I mean, the whole community really kept this case top of mind. Police obviously were very much involved in it too, with the billboards that they would put up,
right?
And, things like that. So, like we said at the beginning, it's hard for anyone in the Quad Cities to not know the name Trudy Appleby.
Right.
So when he says, "I only know of this through the newspaper," I mean, he knew people who were connected to her, so that had to make you kind of question.
It did, and again, it's one of those moments where I wanted him to call back so that I could get that next part in. You know, as he's talking, I'm like writing down notes of like, okay, wait, go back to this part, but keep him talking, you know, keep him on the phone with me, keep this going. And so I guess I would say that it left me with so many more questions. So many more questions that, I mean, he wanted to talk the first time. I'm not going to stop trying, you know? Maybe he'll talk again soon.
Yeah.
Have you talked to police at all since you done this interview?
Yeah, so I did. I reached out to Chief Galt, Darren Galt with the Moline Police Department. I asked him to just, respond to the claim that he says that they're framing him. He simply wrote back, it would be inappropriate for me to respond to such a silly statement.
Yeah,
and that he says he respects the intent with the journalism, but that it should be played out in the court of law and not the media.
Yeah, and so we hope that many of the unanswered questions will come during a trial,
right.
Whenever that may be.
Mm-hmm.
But getting back to the family,
Yeah.
I think the family has just been filled with tragedy. Her mother was killed in a traffic accident, and wasn't around to see the day that police announced an arrest. And
right.
her father has really been behind the scenes, not really open, and you can't blame him.
Right.
And yet his family's been in the spotlight for all these years.
Yeah.
You mentioned that they obviously are hoping for closure by finding her remains. What else has the family told you in your recent reports that stands out?
I think that they really, really thank the community. They're such an incredibly gracious family for all that they have gone through, and they have gone through a lot. They thank the community. They say that they don't think that they would be where they're at now in the case without the community supporting them. And so Ray Edelman is her uncle. Because of Trudy, he joined the Missing Persons Network, the Quad City Missing Persons Network. He's on their search and rescue team. He has been responsible for helping find many missing people in the Quad Cities. They cover the cases that police don't necessarily always put out there, whether that be a runaway or somebody whose case doesn't maybe necessarily go with police policy.
It's not a crime.
Right, it's not necessarily a crime or, anything in those terms. So Ray has helped countless people, and he says he's going to continue, and that's if there's any light at the end of the tunnel in this, he's helped a ton of people. And he says his entire goal is to just keep Trudy's name out there, because they just believe that if she's never forgotten, then they will find her. The truth will come out, and I think police continue to say, I interviewed both Detective Griffin and Chief Galt, and they continue to say there are still people who know. There are people who have answers, who can solve this completely. And their entire goal and their entire mission is just tell us.
Yeah.
Just tell us the truth. It's been 29 years, it's going to go on potentially 30. Hopefully it doesn't get to 30. Hopefully we can find the answers and just know what happened.
Yeah, I know that they can't, but I wish the police would let us know what they know.
I know, I've tried many times.
Answer a lot of questions of at least what direction they're going.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think it is a tremendous value to being able to interview Mr. Fisher and get his side of the story as this case continues to evolve.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be interesting. I know for both of you, you guys have been covering this case. We have old archive video of Sharon actually outside of the church speaking with her pastor.
Yeah.
Just to go back and find that video was
that church has
so
been instrumental
amazing.
in keeping her case up front and forward in everyone's mind, as well.
Yeah, she's really become like the community's daughter, a lost daughter that everybody can relate to. And, we all were, I think when I walked into the newsroom the day that they said they made an arrest, it was shocking.
It was
because
shocking.
You just kind of, after a while, people are still doing their jobs and trying to get an arrest, but it's kind of one of those cases where you thought, I don't think this will ever be solved. And it remains to be seen whether or not he'll be convicted, but I think it was just one of those, wow, I never thought I'd see this day.
Absolutely.
And you also were able to find new pictures of her, which that's something that after all these years is nice in memorializing her.
Yeah, and I'll mention that because we had the story in the morning show. Dustin was able to sit down with her family. We wanted to, while yes, we are giving airtime to her accused killer, right? That's part of our jobs, I think, as journalists. Everybody has a story to share, let them share it. But at the same time, we have to keep Trudy at the forefront of every conversation. And that's at least what we believe. Like, Trudy needs to be the main focus of every single story. And so we met with the family, and I was on the phone with them beforehand. I was like, any chance you guys have like home videos or anything that we can see? And they were like, let us look. It might be on VHS. And I was like, we will do anything, sincerely. And we went there, and they're like, we got her laugh. You get to hear her laughing. To see this little girl that, for us as journalists, we've seen her picture so many times every year.
Just a still photo. That's all we've ever seen.
Just a still photo of her. But to hear her laughing on her mom's lap is just chilling. It is emotional, and it is something that, at least for me, I thought, I'm never going to get to see, how this little girl was, how she existed in this world, who she was. They talked about her being spunky. We've got her making funny faces at the camera, She got to be in her aunt's wedding, and that was in 1993. Her uncle got married in 98, and she wasn't there for it. We've got video of her wedding. I mean, they're like, there she is. She's hugging me. Like, to get a hug from Trudy, that's the best.
You obviously are very emotionally involved in this case, but we appreciate your tenacity and trying to continue to dig and learn more. And we have to say you are innocent until proven guilty.
Absolutely.
So while a suspect has been named, we have to be fair and respect Mr. Fisher and his rights as well.
Yeah, and respect the justice system. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, anything else, Sharon?
I don't think so. I think that was great. Very, very informative and very interesting.
Good job, Jenna. Thank you.
Thank you.